I'm super excited to have us talk to, I'm going to have trouble pronouncing.
Nontsikelelo.
Thank you, Kusi. Because today marks a special occasion across the continent. It's Indigenous Tree Day. It's a growing African initiative launched in 2023 by Dr. Victor Nontsikelelo Mpula, and the African Tree Seeds Group highlights the importance of conserving, restoring, and celebrating our indigenous trees. Trees that are not only critical for our ecosystems, but deeply rooted in our cultural and economic heritage. This year, South Africa, SANBI, the South African National Biodiversity Institute, in partnership with organizations like the Botanical Society of South Africa, the IUCN, the Johannesburg City Parks and Zoo, SALGA, and others, is planting 30 indigenous tree species across the National Botanical and Zoological Gardens. In the effort to, it's part of a broader vision to support biodiversity, promote sustainability, and meet the ambitious goal of planting 1 million trees in 2025. Here to tell us more about Indigenous Tree Day and what SANBI is doing to drive awareness and community involvement is a representative from SANBI. So let's start with a basic question. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and then what is Indigenous Tree Day? Like, how did it come about?
Great. Thank you very much for inviting me. The South African National Biodiversity Institute is charged with conserving biodiversity in South Africa. We do monitoring of ecosystems, and we report to the Department of Forestry, Fisheries and the Environment on the status of biological diversity in the country, and we do programs to teach people how to conserve biodiversity. So what is biodiversity? It's plants, it's trees, it's animals, it's people. So our main aim is to make sure that biodiversity is conserved for a sustainable future for everybody. So what we are doing today is that we're highlighting the importance of planting indigenous trees because they are resilient, they are acclimatized to the South African context, and so they are hardy enough to be able to withstand the impacts of climate change, which are, in fact, sort of one of the biggest challenges that we face as a country and as the global community. So the reason why we are taking up the mantle of Indigenous Tree Day is because we see that it, first of all, is an African initiative, and we as Africans need to be responsive to the challenges ourselves. We can't be waiting for other people to come to with solutions. The solutions have to come from within. And so as champions of biodiversity in our National Botanical Gardens, SANBI only plants indigenous plants in the 11 National Botanical and the 2 Zoological Gardens that we run. And so what we wanted to do is create awareness about our gardens and the national effort to maintain ecosystems and educate people about biodiversity, and also invite people to come to the National Botanical Gardens to see how to propagate for themselves and also how to take care of our environment for their sustainable future.
Wow, that's a very noble and wide-reaching goal. So, but could you tell us a little bit more about what you guys are actually doing? You're planting 30 different species of indigenous trees, and can you tell us a little bit more about those tree species and why they're important in particular, and where this is taking place?
Absolutely. So, across the gardens, there are at least 5 trees per garden that are being planted. Some of the trees are, sort of endemic to the area. For example, we are operating from Thohoyandou, and you'll know that, for example, marula is a tree, is a plant that grows in the Limpopo region. So we'll be planting marula trees for its conservation value and also its socio-economic value. It's about making sure, as I said, that people and nature thrive together. So it's about teaching people that if you use the plants sustainably, restoring ecosystems while you are consuming, you will be able to coexist with nature. So each garden is planting trees alongside communities, schools, churches, and the like. We in Thohoyandou are also opening a tree trail, which is only got indigenous trees, so that people can learn what medicinal properties there are for these trees, what socio-economic value there are in these trees, and for the beauty and for obviously the ecosystem value also the nurturing of insects and birds and animals in the area. They give shade. They, sort of the tree is kind of the center of the ecosystem. Certainly, the indigenous ones are, and so that's what we'll be doing across all 11 gardens, including Kirsten Posh, Pretoria Zoo, and KZN as well.
If you're just tuning in now, we're talking to a representative from SANBI, the South African National Biodiversity Institute, about Indigenous Tree Day. So could you talk to us a little bit more about why specifically it's indigenous trees that are so important and that you guys are focusing on rather than just general plants that are around?
So, as I said, that SANBI monitors the status of biodiversity, and one of the projects that we have in that area is about clearing invasive species. So, a lot of plants that have been brought in from other countries take up a lot of water, and so they are already putting stress on a drought kind of environment because South Africa is sort of tending to drought, and with climate change, it's being worsened. So what we do is we clear invasive species, and then in terms of restoring the spaces that we are clearing these invasive species from, we plant indigenous plants which are less water consumptive, and then again, as I said, plants are homes for insects and birds and animals, and so it's about closing that loop, about restoring the ecosystem so that it continues to thrive for the benefit of people and for nature.
So this is obviously like a wide-ranging collaborative effort between a lot of major organizations. Could you talk a little bit about some of the other partners who are involved in today's events besides SANBI?
Absolutely. So we partnered with the Botanical Society of South Africa, and they've actually sponsored the tree trail that we're opening in Thohoyandou today. And then also the International Union for Conservation of Nature, the IUCN. We work with them in terms of red listing species, species of trees that are endangered or under threat. And that gives us a platform to be able to mobilize the international community to conserve those species, to not only catalog them, but also spur conservation efforts and restoration efforts. Then we're working with the Johannesburg City Parks and Zoo in terms of urban forests, and then the Association of Parks and Recreation Africa, and then the SABC as well as the South African Local Government Association. So it takes, this is what illustrates, this whole project illustrates, is that it takes a village to make sure that we are essentially fixing our ecosystems and restoring them to a place where we will be able to benefit from those ecosystems, not only from a perspective of socio-economic value, but just from the enjoyment of it, spending time in a national botanical garden or in a green space of any kind is restorative to the soul, not only for the physical well-being, because green spaces are the lungs of the planet, but also just for mental health and well-being. And so this is why we are partnering not only with these people, but with other organizations to make sure that everyone is aware of the importance of conserving biodiversity, because it is good for people and for nature.
So could you speak to the educational aspect of this initiative? How are your local schools and communities being involved in the events of today?
So I want to talk a little bit about the broader program of tree planting that is being championed by the Department of Forestry, Fisheries and the Environment. They are planning to plant 1 million trees this year, and this is also to support the bigger program of 10 million trees that is being led by the President. And for that, it means that society has to get on board. So we are talking to schools on an everyday basis, because SANBI runs an education conservation program where we invite schools into our gardens to talk about propagation, about not littering, about waste management, for all the value chain of coexisting with nature. But this particular initiative is about making sure that we can plant these trees and help the schools maintain those trees. So, we plant saplings. We're going to plant a fully grown tree. So it's about teaching kids how to take care of nature from a very young age. Not just propagating, but also maintenance to make sure that the trees survive and are able to be enjoyed for the future.
And so what are some of the key threats facing indigenous trees species in South Africa right now? You've talked a little bit about other invasive species, but are there anything else that's like a main issue in this area?
Well, the main issue is about the lack of water, and also obviously people need to be educated about not taking down trees for consumptive use without restoring the ecosystems, without replanting the trees, because then it erodes the soil and makes the soil quality bad. So that is the impact of removing indigenous trees, and that is the sort of biodiversity loss. The biggest threat to biodiversity is human activity, and so what we are trying to do as an institute is that we are trying to make sure that people are aware that they cannot just consume from nature. We also have to make a restorative action to make sure that we are able to maintain nature at an equilibrium.
So you talked a little bit earlier about the SANBI's goal of planting 1 million trees in 2025. So can you talk a little bit more about that goal? Like, how realistic is it, and how can the public make it happen? Because I know 1 million is a lot. If you were to plant a tree, every second, it would take almost 2 weeks. And that's planting a tree every single second.
This is why we are mobilizing society to start collecting trees now, so that we can work up to that 1 million tree goal. It is a DFSE, the Department of Forestry and Fisheries-led initiative, and SANBI is an entity that reports to that department. We are supporting it through our efforts about activating awareness and mobilizing society to get involved with this tree planting initiative. And
so beyond planting, what are some practical things that people can do to support indigenous tree conservation?
First of all, they can come into our National Botanical Gardens and learn more about indigenous trees and indigenous plants. We also have a library. We have a bookshop that sells indigenous plants, books about indigenous plants and all kinds of animals and insects. So they can visit www.sanbi.org.za and look for the icons of the bookshop and have a look and see what beautiful books we have available about the flowering plants of South Africa, about the indigenous plants in South Africa, and then also just plant a tree. I mean, this is what today is about, is creating awareness of why it's important to plant indigenous trees. It's because they are endemic to the area, and so the ecosystems in which they can be planted will create food for other creatures that will make sure that the ecosystem thrives. I'm sorry, I have to just go because we're starting the event pretty soon, and I am the program director. So, if I may.
Thank you for coming in and sharing with us about Indigenous Tree Day. That sounds so interesting, and I'm so glad that there are people out here who are doing such amazing things like you are. One more time, I'm just going to ask you before you leave, can you repeat where we can find and support SANBI or get more information?
It's www.sanbi.org.za.
Well, thank you very, very much. And is there any last sentences you want to say? Anything else that you would like to tell our listeners?
I just wanted to thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak about Indigenous Tree Day and to say that SANBI National Botanical Gardens are an affordable sort of respite in what mostly urban areas. So all our gardens are in the middle of cities, and so it's an easy getaway to go and get relaxation and green open spaces to restore yourself as a person. And we have a membership card that we offer for adults and children as well, that you can just go to www.sanbi.org to get more information. And it's an annual pass, and it costs about R3 per entrance if you buy the annual card. But ordinarily, from depending on what area you're in, you can pay R50 to have a full day in a beautiful green environment and restore your soul as well.
Well, thank you so much again, and we'll hope to talk to you sometime soon about what else SANBI is doing and any other events you have. I'll let you go now, and with the plea to everyone who's listening that go check out Indigenous Tree Day. Thank you very much again.